Welcome back to the DePIN State. I'm your host, Nick Hawks. On today's episode, we have Luis Ramirez, founder and CEO at Mawari. This episode is sponsored by Gold Hawks & Associates, the most experienced DePIN consultancy in the space. We help projects develop strategy, messaging, and token incentives. We'll have a little bit more on us later in the show. Before we get started, make sure you hit the like, subscribe, smash the bell, all the things that help us keep bringing great guests like Luis to you. Luis, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Likewise, thanks for having me here. Excited to have this chat.
I'm psyched to have you on. Yeah, so I've been doing a little bit of research on Mawari, but for folks who are coming into this kind of clean and fresh, tell me a little bit about who you are and what your history is. I know you got a background in music, math, 3D production tech, like you're not just a streaming nerd, but talk me through who you are and what you're into.
Sure. Okay. So I'm Luis, originally from Mexico, but I would say citizen of the world. I lived in Germany, in the US, and now I've been in Asia for over 12 years, actually 13 now. And I moved to Tokyo in 2011, and that's where I started the company. Yeah, my background, school is mathematics. I focus on just pure mathematics. That's usually not very useful, but that's what led me to think outside the box. But on the other side, I have a very creative nature, and I've been in the electronic music scene since I was 18. And that's what led me into sound design for video games, which then led me to tech and what I'm doing today.
That's right. Because, I mean, you've been involved in these big music festivals and making sure people are, I guess, getting all the data that they need to get during those things. So that's a nice segue into what is Mawari, and talk me through this XR business. What's going on here?
Sure. Okay, so in short, Mawari is, we can define it as a DePIN for spatial computing, which means we orchestrate resources like GPU, storage, and bandwidth to stream content to immersive devices, which are XR glasses.
Mm-hmm. And XR, for folks who don't know, is extended reality. So it's all the stuff that you see where it's your physical reality plus whatever else is coming in, whether that's augmented, virtual, all the rest of that stuff. Is there anything else in there that you think is important?
Sure. Well, I could start with how we came actually with this idea. So basically, our belief since my co-founder Takeo and I, since before we started Mawari, was that at some point in time, the current media that we have that is seen and displays in 2D will transcend and evolve into 3D or the 3D internet, or spatial computing, as Apple calls it today. Yep. So that was our original vision. So then we thought, okay, so if websites will be in 3D, all the things that we interact with today that we're familiar with will be in 3D, there needs to be a way to, one, create, and two, deliver that data seamlessly as we have it in the internet today. So we went down the rabbit hole per se, and we realized, okay, so content delivery is not a trivial thing, and this is where the company is focused on since 2018, actually.
That's right. You guys started in 2018, and the initial intent was to service edge demand, and it was really before there was a ton of edge demand. So you'd see this, Watson running some AI human, and there wasn't really demand for it. It's like, hey, that's kind of cool, but 7 billion people around the planet don't really want that yet. And what you guys are building for, if I'm understanding it correctly, is when those 7 billion people do want it, or 6 billion, or whatever the number is by the time we get there, is that you'll have the ability to deliver this 3D content through the internet in a way that you can't do today. Is that right?
That is correct. So think about just and I'll make a very similar example, which is Akamai, which is one of the biggest content delivering companies today. Yep. In 1995, they had a similar vision. Okay, so who's going to distribute all the content when and at the time it was 1 million users. Now we're talking about billions. But they had that vision. Okay, so who's going to solve that problem? Nobody was solving it, so they created Akamai. And then one day Yahoo came to them and say, well, we want to stream this baseball game to 1 million users per se. Can you help us? And they were ready, and they tackled the problem. So we see the same here in terms of Mawari. It's especially in 2018, it was way too early. We just had conviction that this is happening. And there are two parts or two market signals, we could say. The first one is, okay, so the example of the AI agent. In 2018, it was like not happening. But then now we have ChatGPT 4.0 and all these LLMs where you can actually have a somewhat intelligent conversation with them. It's much more believable now that that future is pretty close. And especially because as you talk to an AI, you want to have that personal human touch in the end. That's where XR and 3D graphics come into place. And I would say that Meta announcing the Orion classes this year, it's the iPhone moment, honestly speaking, because until today, all the headsets were very bulky, like not really user-friendly. But these glasses are 90 grams, so it's really next level. And that's really the inflection point that we as a company, we were waiting patiently for.
Yeah. I think we'll talk about what's going to happen in 2027 in a minute. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll talk about today's sponsor, 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐚𝐤𝐸 Associates. We're a DePIN consultant firm helping projects with strategy, messaging, and token incentives. We run a blog for founders over at 𝐿𝐴NDHAWKS.com, produce this show, and most importantly, work with the core teams and communities of your favorite projects in the space to ensure tokenomics and incentives are fully aligned to build out some of the most badass physical infrastructure networks in the world. If your project needs help with any of these, check out 𝐿𝐴NDHAWKS.com. So, Luis, in 2027, the word on the street is that, Apple is going to release their kind of next generation of devices, and you guys should be perfectly primed or ready for that. Is that kind of the date that you're aiming for to be ready? I know you've got a node sale coming up, so certainly you're going to be ready before that. Walk me through that.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, we do believe that 2027 is the start of that second inflection point towards the adoption of these devices. There are a lot of rumors that yes, indeed, it will be the consumer version of Apple, but also, I mean, the Meta Orion probably is going to be released to the public in 2027 as well.
Okay.
So if we think, and this is interesting for the people that like to research, there's a tweet from Jack Soslow at Andreessen Horowitz, in which he compares the rollout of the iPhone to the rollout of the Quest platform. And we are at year 4, in which the iPhone had about 30 million units. And also right now at Quest, we have a little bit more of 30 million units shipped worldwide. So it's quite interesting because the curve looks exactly the same. And we all know that the iPhone was created hype, and it took a little bit of takeoff until that killer application was found, and then it led to what we have today as the mobile internet. So when we look at it with that optic, actually is quite revealing and scary in that sense that actually is quite soon is happening, not just by the rumors of Apple releasing this, but with that hard data that this is how it happened for the smartphone. We see it happening.
Yep, and history typically rhymes is the word on the street. So it may not look exactly like that, but it should look a lot like it. Okay, so if we're thinking kind of big picture here, what you guys are doing on the DePIN side is distributing out a bunch of nodes around the world. Those nodes do the usual kind of content delivery piece, compute, render, so that it's really close to wherever it is. I guess the question that I've got is someone goes in, they're like, oh, this sounds super cool, I'm going to buy a node. How are you ensuring, or does it even matter, that they have a fast connection? Are the incentives set up so that the faster the connection, the better the the token incentive, or is there something else going on there? Because you can have all the, the greatest machine in the world, but if you've got a, old modem, it doesn't really matter.
A bottleneck. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, yes, let's start. What is the objective of the node cell and why we're doing it? So, okay, so we anchored 2027 as the key year, right? So that means that in 2027, we need to be ready for the amount of demand of content that will be requested by developers and by end users. And the truth of the matter is that we don't know how that network at that level of bandwidth worldwide will react. So we need to simulate it. So that's step one. I can tell you, yes, of course, we need higher bandwidth, but as we've been doing experiments, actually our technology has been quite resilient in terms of latency tolerance. At first, the hypothesis for pixel streaming is that you need to maintain the same frame rate as the headset. So that's 12 milliseconds round trip, which is an edge computing use case. But actually, we've done some tests with T-Mobile, and our technology still with 100 plus milliseconds have very good tolerance for a smooth user experience. So similar to that, right now we are streaming at around 10 to 15 megabits per second, which that's effectively what Netflix 4K requires you to stream the 4K movie. So with that, what I'm trying to say is that we have two verticals per se, or tracks. One is the R&D side, in which also with the help of AI, eventually you will have to infer data, so you can reduce bandwidth in the end. It's not a magical solution, but that will help significantly for the purpose that we're building. Second, okay, so the node cell is for what we call the guardian nodes, which are verifiers. They are the ones that will help us start simulating the network, meaning they will get also data from end users, from mobile phone applications, and from the rendering nodes. And we will be parsing that data to verify, okay, so for example, if you are in South Africa and I'm streaming from a node in Japan, what are really the true requirements, and so on and so forth, so that we can optimize the network. So we need cooperation from community members and let's say just a very bad connection, but with good compute, but also from enterprise grade, so that we can actually come up with what is the final architecture, what is that final design that will make things work. The other point in terms of economy. So as you know, cloud compute is a premium product right now. And this is the caveat for some cloud gaming startups that before they actually turn into profit, they've gone belly up because they owe too much money to AWS. So
yep. It's easy to owe a lot of money to AWS. You can trip and fall and spend $1 million.
Yeah. So through the help of the community, we can have a community driven based DevNet, where you actually can tolerate lower bandwidth and things, because in the end you're testing. And then once you move your application into production, of course we have partnership with enterprise grade data centers that will provide the compute for actually the use cases that developers will be monetizing. And that's kind of like a go-to-market strategy to subsidize the spearhead of this ecosystem.
Oh, interesting. So am I getting this right, that the node cell ends up building this test net that you can then simulate the whole piece on, but at the end, there'll be an integration of both the nodes that get sold or people buy or build or whatever, as well as enterprise grade data centers? There's going to be this kind of integrated piece, or am I missing something?
Correct. because in the end, we're providing, we already have revenue, we have existing clients, and they expect high quality of service, right? It's not like, okay, so 80% uptime is good enough. It needs to be 90.999 or more.
Right.
So that's the bottom line. So for the commercial use cases, we will be using enterprise GPUs, but that doesn't mean that as when we finish and finalize the simulation of the network, we will identify worldwide other GPUs that actually have the right characteristics to stream what we need, and that they will be, of course, very incentivized to become part of the not only the DevNet but the mainnet per se.
Got it. Okay, so if I'm wrapping this whole thing up, it sounds pretty cool in the sense that you guys are building really this kind of research platform for streaming so that you understand what you need in the real world and then can serve that either through the enterprise grade data centers or through folks like me who've got whatever node in their home and can do it that way. But you actually have real world data that you can then say, hey, this is how we build this versus, hey, we're going to run this off 6,000 Raspberry Pis and it turns out it doesn't work, or we're only going to run this off AWS and it's some huge bill. So it sounds like a very sensible way to build the whole thing. Okay.
Correct. While already serving commercial clients, and it's just kind of like a more sustainable way to grow, and I would say a more honest way and capital efficient in the end.
Yep, because you guys already have clients, which we haven't covered, but it's not like you're kind of YOLOing this thing and seeing what happens. You've already got folks who are saying, hey, we want this information to be streamed in this way.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay. Super cool. Where can people find you and sign up for the node sale?
As simple as Mawari.net, or they can join our Discord. And if they join our Discord, they will get access to the whitelist, which will have some perks for them.
Okay. Super cool. Luis, I know you're super busy as a founder. Thanks so much for making the time to come on and explain Mawari to us.
Likewise, thank you. And feel free to message me on LinkedIn or actually just go to our X and drop a message.